Okay, we are live.
We are live. Hello, interwebs. So this is session 4 or session 3B. We're a little bit late because we've been waiting for Nikos, but you know, he never did register on the G+ invite.
Okay.
So perhaps Frank isn't here tonight. And we're done waiting. We're going to have a little bit of a conversation because Abstract Machine did make it here. He's Cletus Purcell. And I just wanted to get some of this down in the video stream so that anybody who's been watching the sessions can sort of get a narrative through line here. Is that cool with you? Maybe we'll run past some of the stuff we've discussed already.
Okay.
And also jump forward a little bit. So the feeling is, as we discussed, due to some of the stuff that happened in the dream world last time around, Cletus is wondering if his God has forsaken him, if his religion is just some sort of defense mechanism that he's created. He's starting to look at his life, at his failed marriages, at the estate that he's just lost, at the fact that he was completely powerless on the last mission inside Frank's dream, and coming to question his whole approach to life at this point. He's
That's
also
a fair summary, yeah.
He's also losing followers at a slow rate. Now, we've got two storylines intersecting with Cletus's life. So let's look at them one at a time. First off, I'm going to take Frank because he's the biggest one right now. Now, here you are. You're going along with your life. You're having your divorce. You've got your show, da-di-da. You receive a call from Blanche one day. You've been recommended for a job because of your religious expertise. This is particularly suited for you. So you come in, you sign this NDA. What do you know? You're doing a job for X Investments. And they introduce you to a pilot, Frank Frass. Now, you go up to Kabaka Maru, you deal with the situation up there. There's some interesting arrangements with a couple different tribes that have got a trade agreement, which benefits X Investments highly. And you and Frank are both instrumental in bringing that trade agreement back to the table and making everybody happy again. So when you get back to Earth, there's a bonus for you. Apparently, Blanche is very happy with you. She's very happy with Frank. A week goes by. You're working with Helmut. You're mixing video. You're deciding how to write your screenplay treatment. You're wondering what's up with Frank, who you still don't know really well. You know, you did see that he is quite a heroic character, and you decided to cast him as sort of a messianic figure if you can get away with it. So you're projecting on Frank a little bit, I think, right?
Yep. Yeah.
Frank is maybe like a heroic alter ego character for you.
Yeah, I think that would be a fair summary as well, I think. Yeah. He's what I can't really be, which is heroic, effective, integrated into a kind of career path, which not only is good, but looks good.
It's funny that you should say integrated, because of course it turns out that Frank is anything but integrated. He's bits and scattered across the multiverse. And you learn that in the last trip when you make contact with Frank and discover that he is tied up in something big involving somnambula industries and people breaking into his hotel room and chasing him all up and down the state of California.
Right.
There's something big going on with Frank. So you meet him at Diaspora Ranch. You pick up Chuck as your spare pilot. You get a second ship from Blanche. And off you go to the dream world. Now, here's where everything falls apart for Cletus.
Yeah.
But up until that point in the narrative, it feels like, kind of like in Pynchon's V, once again, right? We've got two lines of characters that are coming toward each other, and they meet at Diaspora Ranch, and now something's going to happen that sort of justifies why the two of them have been coming together. But instead, what happens is we go into Frank's world, and Cletus's world falls apart.
Right. Yeah, because it turns out that whatever Cletus thought Frank symbolized, something altogether more complicated and, well, yeah, less integrated is going on. He thought he just had to recombine Frank with his spirit. But it turns out there isn't a single spirit. There isn't a single Frank. There isn't a single point of view. There isn't a single God taking care of the business. And that's freaked Cletus out. Because he lost his voice. And when he tried to speak the truth, all he got was gobbledygook. And the symbols were clear, but the imaginary world wasn't clear, or its reason for existing wasn't clear, and the reality underpinning it wasn't clear either. So we had psychic content which was confusing rather than revelatory, for Cletus at least.
Yeah, I agree. So when you get back to Earth, the very first thing Frank does is he takes his friend Donnell off to the infirmary.
Yeah.
Take care of him. You and Helmut and Chuck are all left there in Bay 2.
Yeah.
I think everybody feels just kind of like emotionally wiped out right now.
Sure. I mean, I Zoom propped me up briefly, I think, and I might actually develop some kind of dependency. It seems likely to me, seeing as that was the thing that brought me back to my idea of myself. So my idea of myself might be somewhat dependent on outside factors, typified by the Zoom, I think.
You liked it, in other words.
Yeah, yeah. And I liked
like
it.
The drugs, but the drugs like me.
And also, I'm delusional, really. Either I'm delusional, directly delusional, I'm indirectly delusional, but somehow my idea of myself has been upset, and I'm not willing to admit the implications of that.
Yeah.
In their entirety, at least. You know.
Do you want some time alone? Do you want to go back to work with Helmut? What's your feeling now?
He'd probably want to rush out a promo of the church. He thinks there's a one-size-fits-all solution to losing followers, to underestimating Frank, to becoming more famous and therefore, in his own mind at least, more successful. And that's the beast with 10 heads and the Frank as hero promo.
Which means getting back to Southern California with Helmut.
Yes, and putting it out quickly. We've been working on this 2 weeks now, Helmut. Let's put it out. Let's make it happen, and we can do it as a kind of drama documentary.
Well, yeah, but Cletus, I mean, you heard what Frank said. It was on your phone. He says, "I'm not a messiah. I'm not ready for any close-ups, Mr. DeMille." That didn't sound too positive to me.
Well, that depends how you look at it. Even Jesus has his doubts. I mean, the 40 days in the wilderness, and when he went into the Gethsemane, he kind of said, "Look, followers, lose me, and then you'll come back to me." It's part of the dramatic arc, Helmut. You know.
I agree, dramatic arc, but there's lawsuits, there's libel. You know.
Okay. I mean, you're saying that we shouldn't use Frank, or we should not use him as a messiah?
Well, I'm concerned about portraying Frank in a way that's going to make him call his lawyer.
Okay. Okay, Helmut. Well, how do you think?
I'm just saying, look, Frank is a good guy, and I got nothing against Frank. I'm just saying, you know, this is the business. You know how people get. That's why we have the lawyers.
Okay. And did you get any footage of the child, Frank?
Oh,
with his itty bitty devil eyes and that?
I got everything. I got everything. We could do a whole episode just on this. This was amazing. This is some of the creepiest footage I've ever seen, and they're gonna think we faked it.
Oh well, that's cool. That gives us another get out clause if we need it, huh? It's just a story, right?
Yeah, but do you see this as part of the same story? I mean, there's nothing to do with Kabaka Maru.
Well, okay. Well, let's put out the Kabaka Maru story first, then, and then come back to Frank. What do you think of that?
Okay. So,
and maybe Helmut.
Now, what about your boy Frank? Is he safe now? Is he good? What?
Well, between you and me, Zico, he's a little paranoid right now. He keeps moving hotel. He keeps signing in under aliases. He thinks there's this kind of. Do you know anything about Somnambula Industries?
I know they make the Dream Deck 3000.
Yeah, well, nobody seems to know much about him. And Frank, what little he does know, does not make him feel secure. He kept talking about a coffin and being shut up in a hotel. And there were a few weird things going down. I think.
Oh no! Clearly, somebody's after the guy. Somebody broke into that hotel.
Yeah, he wasn't real distinct about what exactly was going on, and I got a feeling that he's not really clear about it even, and that they've taken.
Are you suggesting that he staged that and did it himself?
No, I'm suggesting that somebody is going out of their way to confuse him, and that somebody has succeeded. It wasn't all just in his own mind, but sorting the truth from the fiction of the subconscious dream stuff, you know, is kind of tricky.
You think somebody's gaslighting him?
Yeah.
Good angle.
But we got to find out. You know, I mean, I'm not saying we should simplify everything, Helmut, but who's wearing the white hats here and who's wearing the black hats? We're going to have to head towards some kind of neat resolution. There's one thing I know about people is that they like a neat resolution with a good flavoring of outrage and success.
Well, you're right about that, and I'm perfectly happy to go down to SoCal and finish up the editing. We got to get this thing out. I also have some work to do on ArtPag. I mean, I can't forget my existing production company. They still do have another season coming up.
Sure.
So I'm not going to be able to hang out every day like this, you know, forever. This is just a little vacation that I'm.
Okay. What do we think about the time scale on putting out the Kabaka? I think we should have a little promo at the end saying next episode or coming soon, and just have a few shots of the child Frank, and maybe a few of the flames, but don't put in the narrative to which Frank objected. Just say.
I'm thinking bigger than that. I'm thinking we sell God Wars as a complete package. We try to get a season deal, and we do God Wars 1, Kabaka Maru. That's our pilot, but we've already got footage from upcoming episode 2, which is Frank's Dream World.
Okay.
All right, then we talk to some network execs. We try to pitch that thing and get a deal for at least 20 episodes.
20 episodes, wow, man.
Well, you know, you work big.
Okay, and we're selling the Kabaka Maru as the pilot or as a fait accompli.
It depends what they're looking for, you know. I mean, the optimum for me is to sell it as a pilot and then get 6 to 9 months to prepare the rest of the season.
Sure. Okay.
Which we could do with, you know, I mean, if you think about it, because every trip, maximum 24 hours. I mean, we're limited literally by Einsteinian science, right? So 24 hours maximum is our shooting limit. And then we've got to work with what we have.
I like that. You got jeopardy, you got containment, you got narrative. Everything we need.
Well, we also have this backstory. See, whenever we have a slow week, we can always come back and see what's going on with Frank or Kabaka Maru, because these are ongoing.
Sure. Okay. Yep. Sounds good to me, Helmut. When do we think the first episode will be ready to go out?
Well, the whole reason we're up here instead of down there right now is because we were looking for the okay from your pal Frank, you know. But it looks like we're going to go with the sort of the nameless Frank just a dude story.
Okay. Well, we got a guy coming out of a desert to do a job angle on this. We just soft pedaled the Messiah angle. You know, we can still Clint him up a bit, you know, and have him as the nameless preacher guy. You know, I just like that.
Oh, exactly. The God War here is not between Chikatara Man and, you know, Frank the Messiah. It's between the primitive, fundamentalist, magical thinking versus modern high technology and machine guns.
But what's the middle ground there? What has primitive Kabaka Maru learned from hypertechnology, and what was hypertechnology learned from primitive Kabaka Maru?
Well, I think where it comes together is in the negotiations at the end.
Sure.
Right? Because the technology side was already getting the long end of the stick there. And so the balance was sort of met a little bit. You know what? Matter of fact, I hear that they're getting these prefabricated houses, you know, those little domes, they look like those igloos. They're made out of some sort of synthetic plastic, and they're big enough to house a family of 4. Snugly, but, you know.
Sure.
Shipping them out to Kabakamaroo. Yeah, they're going to put them all over the top of that mountain where the X compound is. The idea is they're going to unite the East and the West tribes together.
Okay. In one neatly contained housing development. And I'm sure they'll like that. I mean, some people say they're joining the bottom of our society, but I like to say they're joining the top of their own.
They'll have electricity. They'll be able to watch reruns of my show.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh. Well, everybody likes to see themselves on the tube, right? Okay, well, I'm all good with that. I think Cletus has now reassured himself somewhat. He was a bit disappointed in Frank not wanting to be the face of the episode, but that's all right. He can reassure himself that he's the facilitator for a whole cast of heroes now, even though they're largely imaginary.
So we're going to leave Frank up here then?
Yeah. Oh, I mean, I think Frank has sort of 3 elements boiling away, which is God Wars, the status of his own faith, and the status of people's faith in his church, which is ebbing away a little bit, and his own personal arc, which is he's getting into Zoom and not facing up to his ex-wives and the dispensation of his estate. He's quite likely to kind of have some kind of implosion at some point. And we can always just put that, we can just hang it on a peg for when it's useful, or we can explore it at some point in the future. It's up to you, really.
Okay. My question is, can we go back to Southern California now?
Yeah.
It just feels a little bit strange after rushing to get to Frank, and then the dream happens and we get back to Earth, just sort of abandoning Frank.
Yeah.
But of course, the reason you were chasing after Frank was not for him. It was to ask him your question, and you got your answer.
Yeah. I mean, I think that Cletus finds Frank resistant to what he calls destiny and what Frank might call rampant media manipulation. He doesn't know where that's going to go. He's sort of he'd like to get to know Frank, but it seems like the more he puts pressure on Frank for that to happen, the more Frank realizes he doesn't really know himself, or doesn't really know the whole of himself. Cletus is still under the impression that a piece of Frank's spirit is out there. What he doesn't fully realize is that Frank's out there and various pieces of Frank's spirit are here. So he's got the wrong impression. It's just the one, he sort of knows in vague terms what's going on with Frank. He just doesn't see it the right way around.
Mm-hmm. All right, so it's back to Southern California, back to sunny San Dimas.
Uh-huh.
You might want to leave a voicemail for Frank.
Sure.
And what I think we should do there is put a pin in that and remember later. So the next time Nikos is online, you can make up then what the voicemail said now.
Okay, sure.
Right, that should work. Little mechanical tip for you GMs out there. And we'll take you back to SoCal, where you guys have got at least a few more days working on this video. You now know which way to go. We're cutting out all the messianic stuff. You still have a great story, though. You've got climax 1 is probably the little monster. Climax 2 is, I think, the mid episode break is where they come out of the forest, preparing for war.
Yeah.
And then the third climax is, of course, the middle of the big ship to head air fight.
Mm-hmm.
Come back from our third commercial and finish off with the destruction of the head. And then we do a little bit about Tripto's trial. The winner in this God War, we do some sort of neat graphics on the screen and we tally up the points. Technology.
Okay, so what Cletus imagines might happen, or that he wants to discuss with Helmut, is topping and tailing it. with a kind of intro, which asks about the significance of the big head and what the graven idols mean to the greater galactic slip space story arc.
I like it.
And then coming back to it at the end and saying, who made the big heads? Did they have our own best interests at heart, or are they trying to lead us astray? Is the opportunity the same as danger? You know, because Tripto is a cautionary tale about what happens when you misuse the big heads.
You are brilliant, my friend. Let's put that together. Let's get that in the can. And so off you go to get that in the can.
Yeah.
Let's see. When you guys have finished your editing, it's going to be days later. He's going to run off, and he's got some Hollywood kind of business to do, and he's got to meet with someone to start pitching this pilot that you've got. You've now got a rough cut of the pilot together.
Yeah.
And that's going to take him a little bit of time. Now, between now and then, there will be one more Frank run to Kabaka Maru. That happens every Friday.
Okay. And Frank does it himself, does he?
Frank is now the new pilot. He's taken over Tripto's job.
Okay.
So, yeah, if nothing else, you always want to, if you want to get in touch with Frank, you'll always find him at Tracy Ranch Friday morning.
Okay.
Because that's his regular gig.
Well, I think probably what we'll do is leave him an encouraging message. We're following, give him space and he'll return to us, kind of, rather than crowd him out. So just, you know, hey, if you ever need any help, yeah, sure, we've taken your opinions on board. We're leaving the Messianic angle to one side, and we're just mentioning you as the reluctant hero, you know, a guy doing his job.
I got something else you can throw in there. Your last conversation with Blanche, she was talking about a hitch in the negotiations, about how the Shashara want guns. She feels uneasy arming them. You mentioned swords into plowshares. They just need the right kind of face on this operation. She said, are you suggesting that you're that face?
Wow.
So that sounds like a potential open door for you to get another trip out to Kabaka Maru.
Uh-huh. Well, I'm open to those ideas. I just think in terms of the Godhead show, we don't want to be going back for another show too soon on in the story arc.
No, I agree. It's a good idea to go back and revisit, but, you know, at least half a season later, or better yet, next season.
Sure, sure. So this isn't about footage if we go back. It's about preparing the ground. It's like a production angle.
Well, that's the way I see it, and assumedly that's the way you see it. But, you know, the way Blanche sees it, there's nothing about video involved at this point. She just wants to make sure that the negotiations go well and the company doesn't end up starting some kind of civil war by arming one side and not the other.
Uh-huh. Well, I think that we need to prepare a parable for these people about what happens when one side has guns and one side does not. And
I'm both.
Yeah. Well, that would be the American way, Helmut. But escalation is an issue, really, because changing the homes, changing the weapons, changing the social fabric all at once, you know, we have some lessons from our own history on that, and that is you got to bring them right in rather than let them go their own way. I think we can all agree on that moral of the story. In other words, we should either not arm anybody, or we should have people on the ground. And if we have people on the ground, that's going to cost X investments money, which they may not be willing to spend.
All right, well...
I mean, we already have the problem with Tripto going native. So...
Okay, we do have enough of the... enough data, and I'm not talking about the video right now. This is just between you and me, okay? Because you're talking about this job for Blanche. Okay, correct me if I'm wrong, please. X Industries gives metal goods to the Kabaka
Yeah.
in exchange for some kind of water which gets condensed down into these bricks and sent back to Earth.
Right.
Now, the water comes from the trees in the forest, which are tended by the Shishara people, who are the only ones that live on the surface. Everybody else on the planet lives underground.
Except the refugees from the cave people. Who was the son of the chief.
That one kid.
Right. But it shows that some intrasocial fabric, I looked that up, intrasocial, could occur there. I just think we should arrive with plowshares and show them the efficacy of farming with the water rather than shooting with the guns. And that gives us an idea.
No, that's for the Shishara. Sure. But for the Kabaka, all right, again, correct me if I'm wrong. The Kabakas give their shit to the Shishara people. The Shishara people do something with that shit that involves this water.
Yeah.
And they end up making oil water, Kabaka X out of it.
Yeah, but they got Kabuku there, right?
Some of it back to the Kabaka, who gives it to the company in exchange for metal goods.
Sure.
So it looks to me like the Shishara aren't really getting anything out of that deal. But they are getting, the Kabaka are getting this oil water directly from the forest people, which they use to light their houses in their cave, right? And then they're getting the metal goods from the company. Now, when they get prefab dome houses in there with little solar panels on the roof and self-contained power generator, they're not going to need that oil water anymore. What happens to the trade agreement?
Well, what happens to the trade agreement is we give plowshares to the Kabaka. Kabuku, the son of the Kabaka chief, who has joined the Shizara, brokers the deal to receive the metal plowshares and farming equipment from the Kabaka. So that they're not only building the prefab houses, they're also building a farming community.
You mean in the forest?
Yeah. They can cut down trees. They can really get into some American activities. Helmut. They can build themselves a community out of the forest, and they're receiving the metal goods from the Kabaka in exchange for the water. That's the crucial element. And the person responsible, the face of that, is Kabuku, the son of the Kabaka chief.
Well, you're gonna need to make that clear to them, I think. I mean, I get the opinion that the forest people aren't too interested in the trappings of civilization.
Well, that depends on what Kabuku tells them, I think. They had accepted Kabuku into their midst at the end there. Remember we got that lovely shot of them shaking hands and hugging? And the truth is the Kabaka then are dependent on the company to provide them with the goods. Now, it's true that the goods, there doesn't now seem to be a demand for the goods. But as we all know, that the economics of this situation is supply driven. They don't know they want these things yet. But if we make them need them enough, they'll soon find out that they do. What we got to give them is clear evidence that using this stuff, they're going to get more food and more luxury items for their fledgling society.
I hear you, and I agree. Unfortunately, I think the item they want most is guns.
Sure. Well, there's a great story about this from the Book of Enoch, where the angels, or the Nephilim as they became known, descended to the earth to teach them the ways of astrology, the ways of farming, the ways of menstruating neatly, and all kinds of stuff. And problems developed. Let's be honest, problems developed, but so did cities from that intervention from above. I think we need you, Helmut, to put together a promo film showing them all the great trappings of civilization. Now, we don't want Sacramento or some place like that. We want some place that is, let's be kind, let's not use politically incorrect terms, but developing, some place which has recently been brought into the fold of our hyper-capitalized society, and show them the benefits that lay for them in the future if they use plowshares.
You mean like northern Mexico?
Yeah, there's some place like that. I mean, Petrochem has been great for that place, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. You know, I don't know why they held on to nationhood for so long.
Well, yeah, there's that guy with the mustache. I saw a program about his mustache once, and I think the whole problem was with the facial hair, really, and what it symbolized.
Yeah. Okay, well, I like where that's going, and I think that I kind of don't want to get too far ahead, because I feel like there may be a run with you and Frank going back to Kabaka Maru next time around.
Why don't we send them something ahead of time and just say, look, this is and sit them down with a video. We don't have to go there ourselves, all right? And say, look, this is what a farming community can do. You will always have a surplus of food. People will not die from a lack of food. You will always have basic medicines. And all you have to do is get into an agreement with the Kabaka where they provide you with the means to do this.
I know just who to call. Yeah, I got her card. I met her at a party a couple months ago. Hang on, he rifles through some drawers and pulls it out. Dr. Megan Carter, anthropological field worker and open source advocate.
Open source?
Yeah, she's all about the open source village development process. They use machinery. Open source machinery to build other open source machinery. It's prefab villages, colonies on Mars, that sort of thing. The people put together themselves using plans that are free and whatever materials they have around. She's all about this. She talks about it at conferences and everything. I think she would be really gung-ho for this. This is exactly the kind of project that she's talking about when she goes out to the what do they call it? Third world.
And that seems like a great fit, Helmut, because the company can control costs. And we can encourage the people to build this place for themselves using materials provided via the Kabaka. It's a win-win scenario.
I'm going to call her right away. We'll see if we can get her on that next trip. And meanwhile, I think you should call Blanche.
Okay. Okay. Yep. I shall do just that. I shall call Blanche.
Do you want to call Blanche now, or you want to call Blanche next week?
Well, it's up to you. Whatever fits. She can be busy, you know. But basically, we know what the pitch is, and I have a quote saying, you know, they shall take up serpents, and if they drink any deadly thing, it shall not hurt them. They shall lay hands on the sick, and they shall recover, which is in the Gospel of Mark. In other words, we're selling them medicine and the infrastructure of the society to protect their lineage going down.
Oh, please, Cletus. I need a few more drinks before I can swallow your religious metaphors, she says. But if you turn on the oratory voice, I think it'll work for you.
Sure. Well, what we're looking at.
All you need to be is at Tracy Island, Friday, 9 a.m.
Sure. And Megan Carter, have you had any dealings with this woman? Are you familiar with her oeuvre?
Never heard of her. I'll do a full background check. Anyone that Helmut meets at a party, roll the dice. It could be anything at all.
Yeah, but it's like, what I like about it, if you're Blanche, is that she's got open source development, so we can give the Kabaka the tools provided by her, conceptualized by her. We can keep the costs right down, and then the Kabaka can give these goods to the Shazara in exchange for the water with which we're turning into bricks. And then the Shazara can build their own infrastructure, a farming community.
You're thinking years down the line. I like this, Cletus. I like where you're going.
Because they want guns, and we want to give them.
Is capable of coming up with plans like this. Perhaps you should be head man on Kabaka Maru.
I don't want to get tied right down. We got this God Wars thing going, and we want to come back to this later in the narrative. We want this. We need this project to be a success. All of us do, Branch. But we also need to keep our options open, right? Company's got its fingers in a lot of pies. I see a lot of slips ahead for me, and I want to make sure this project works. But I don't want to be tied down to Kabaka permanently.
I think you've got the right idea, Cletus. And if you need any help, I do have connections down there in Southern California. We're talking props, backdrops, CGI, whatever you need to make an effective propaganda film. You want to sell them the trappings of civilization, let's do it right.
Oh, yeah, that sounds good to me. And one last thing, Blanche. Have you heard anything from Frank? How's his Friday flights going? Do you know?
I did get a call from Frank. Apparently, Donnell Farfus is fine. He and Frank are still up at Tracy Island. Farfus seems to be recuperating quite well, and Frank is staying at his side. All I know is there was some sort of emotional scene.
Sure. I mean, I think there's something buried in Frank's past, which Donnell was kind of helping him out, but not in the way that Frank would have expected.
It's not the way any of us expected, Cletus. Listen, I had Frank recommended to me through one source, and I had you recommended through another. And you boys who've never met each other at all went out and performed perfectly. Came back, saved the contract, and frankly, saved my ass a lot of money. And so I favor you. I like you guys. I want things to go well for you so we can continue working together. But last night, you destroyed a 50-mega ship.
Yeah, well, that was the dream, Frank. And you know how dreams, hopes, memories, these things can get out of hand, Blanche. But I want you to know that I did not lay a finger on that ship. And I also want you to know that we were fully insured for the entire trip. I'm sure the premiums will go up a little, but so will the opportunities,
Yes, the ship was insured, and no, you're not in any sort of trouble. In fact, I know that you weren't responsible personally. I'm just saying, keep an eye on Frank.
Sure. Can you keep an...
He is a tremendous asset, but apparently quite an expensive one.
Yeah, sure. Do you know where the source some of the expenses coming from? And you got competition for this asset, Blanche. And it's competition which isn't necessarily healthy.
No, there were a couple agents by yesterday from Somnambula.
Somnambula have got their hooks into Frank.
They didn't look like headhunters.
Yeah, but they weren't hunting his head. They were trying to preserve their intellectual property, if I read the situation right. In other words, they were trying to use Frank's subjective dimensions to assist themselves. I don't know what this Dream Deck product is about, but I do know that I think there was some black ops research of some sort occurring with Frank as a focus. And I think you should enter into a partnership with these people and find out more about them. That would be my suggestion.
Partnership, my ass. These guys are small time. But I do thank you for telling me, because I'm going to have to speak with Frank about this. If necessary, we'll buy them out, shut them up.
Yeah. All I'm talking about, Blanche, is a minority stake. Just so you get the sniff of the intellectual property. Because it is capable of doing some interesting things. Because when you have control of people's dreams, Blanche, you have an insight into the future which will benefit you both. You understand my meaning?
Cletus, are you doing anything this afternoon?
Well, actually, for Helmut's got some of his own work to do. So yeah, this afternoon is free for me.
Well, good. Let's meet for drinks. I want you to tell me everything you know about Somnambula and this Dream Deck.
Well, they're keeping it under their hats, Blanche, which says rather a lot in itself, don't you think? let's both look into it. I'd love to meet you for drinks. Where should we go?
So she names a place kind of midway up the coast, somewhere around Carmel. Beautiful little town, and you know, you could be there in half an hour on the maglev train.
Do all the houses look exactly the same? Do they all have Clint Eastwood's face mapped onto them symbolically?
All houses made of ticky-tacky.
Yeah.
They all look just the same. No, actually, in Carmel, they're quite beautiful. It's a rich person's community. It's well gated and well secured. And one of the few places in California where the original coastline is still preserved.
Okay.
Because it is such a gentrified area, it's extremely expensive and a luxury resort kind of a place.
Right.
So she takes you to an extremely expensive restaurant up there, and of course she pays. Now, we don't have to play out the scene, but the reason for her wanting to meet with you is for you to fill her in, if you so wish, on anything you know about Somnambula, the Dream Deck, and in particular Frank.
Well,
so all the stuff that happened with the hotel and the chase up the state of California, any of that information, are you going to dump it on her?
I'm going to give her most of it, and I'm also going to add a bit of flavor. I mean, you can tell me this. Is the Dream Deck publicly available? And
Yes.
Yeah, right. Okay. So the impression I have of Somnambula is that they're privately held, and therefore they don't have to release public information about themselves.
That is also correct.
So what I'm suggesting to Blanche is they venture capitalize this. They buy a sort of 10% stake, either with an idea of a public offering down the line, or with an idea of leveraging. And what we want is one of the Dream Decks and the possibilities. Maybe we have a bit of R&D on that if we've got time and inclination to do that through X Industries.
Miles ahead of you, Cletus. She pulls out a piece of paper and shows it to you. This is our plan for hostile takeover.
Okay. And how big are these guys, and where are they based?
They're based in Southern California, and they're a new company, but they're one of those bright stars that just started shining, you know, twice as bright. Less than 18 months old, but apparently founded on the last 15 years of research by Dr. Ingwe Cordoba. Now, he's a well-known neurotechnician as well as neurosurgeon. So he knows what he's talking about, and he's been working for quite some time on prototypes of the technology that he's now reduced to a marketable consumer product.
Sure. Sounds like now the problem with these startups is sometimes they shine twice as bright, and then they diminish again. And those who got in early on the investment can look a little, you know, excitable in retrospect. But I get the impression here that there's, with the growth in subjective slips in the various media which make those slips available, there's a big opportunity here for cross-pollination, particularly in marketing and particularly in self-realization. You've got a consumer angle, you've got a business angle, and you've got a societal angle. Because look, even the first slip ever made was a subjective slip, right? I mean, of course, he didn't realize that till after. But people want to live in their dreams. And even though, you know, something that happened to Frank Fress could happen to anyone, that's pretty exciting, right? Hey, the evil you is 6 years old, and you find something else about yourself by taking yourself on, like you're Darth Vader, or you're Tyler Durden, or you're any of these people. They're reflections of yourself. But that's how you grow, right? Personal development, societal development, the means to achieve that. They've already got a product. So, and all they need is a kind of infrastructure. The kind of infrastructure that's provided by the contacts that somebody representing X Industries has. Somebody like you, Blanche.
I agree with you, Cletus. I think everything you said is spot on. We'll be operating a little more covertly than perhaps you might have planned. But that's just to get our ducks in a row. We'll have a number of operatives move in onto the board. We should be able to sew this up within 3 to 6 months.
Okay. And are we going to treat this with the same NDA that we had for the Kabaka situation?
You should read the fine print, Cletus. Any conversation you have with me is locked down.
And when this situation develops, how do you see that progressing, right?
Well, it's unsure. I mean, we don't directly dabble in any consumer retail outlets, but we do have a diversified portfolio, and we've got partners that we could perhaps hand this sort of thing off to. Frankly, to tell you the truth, I'm more concerned with the possible uses of the technology in the same vein as Dr. Cordoba. That is, as navigation assist in subjective slips.
Sure. And then leveraging, I would suggest, this is just a suggestion, Blanche, this is your area, that you retain the intellectual property over any media generated during those navigational trips. Therefore, you get a good body of footage, subconscious footage, that teaches people watching about the possibilities. In other words, right now, slip-in is a small-scale, early adopter, edge of slip space stuff. It won't always be like that, Blanche. Sooner or later, this thing's going to open up. And in the second cycle of the products, people will be going as tourists. Some people will be going as travelers. And they're going to need somebody who can take care of them, who understands the technology, who can, yeah, sell them navigational aids, but also sell them the aspirations of this new frontier in slip space, which is a part of themselves, but also a part of everything, you know? The collective unconscious, that's what that Swiss guy called it, yeah?
You know, Cletus, you never let anyone get a word in edgewise. And I appreciate that, since I've had 3 drinks to your 1. But, foggy head aside, once again, you're proving to be a forward thinker. I appreciate that in you. I like that. In fact, I'm willing to offer you the contract. Well, I mean, once this hostile takeover comes to fruition, that is.
Sure.
We're going to need someone to handle the propaganda campaign. I'm sorry, I mean marketing.
Well, we already, I mean, I don't know how many people you want to deal into this, but I've been canvassing the Sardassian people with my tagline, "My Gator Don't Eat It," to kind of bring in the ham loaf angle. You know, we need. My face is great. My face is great, but imagine Sardassian herself helping us out on the Dream Deck thing, man. And even if, you know, what any great technology thing is supply driven, we could even offer preferential deals, you know, 6 months down the line on the Dream Decks to people. Because once you give them the hardware, they're going to want to buy the software and want to buy the content, which guides their own self-created content. You know? You're
not ready to get into the Dream Deck industry yourself. As I said, I personally am not. I am very curious as to how these things tie into the possibility of a navigational system. I'm a little less curious as to how we can turn it into a public fad, trend, bonanza.
Sure. I do not have a profound understanding of the technical aspects, but as I understand it, intentionality is key. In other words, a person's interior space maps itself onto the vector coordinates. And that's going to be key. In other words, you have to sort your own brain out before. I mean, Frank is instructive. He's great, but he's also taught us about the dangers. You can bring something back with you, which you didn't even know was inside you before you went.
See, your marketing pitch is starting to lose me now.
Well, I'm just saying is people will encounter problems out there, and it will seem better if you can solve them.
I think what we're saying is that when it comes to consumer products, Cordoba jumped the gun. This thing is not safe.
And what we got there is a problem which you can solve, or we can solve.
Correct. And so putting retail ahead of technology transfer, let's call it, is a little cart before the horse. I want that technology, don't get me wrong. But it has to be made safe before I would put it on a shelf in Electromart.
And what I'm saying to you, Blanche, is you got 3 options. You can either buy in via the technology and go direct with what they got, or you can buy into the technology and then say, oh, but that ain't ready yet. We've got a solution. And you sell your own version of the Dream Deck. Or you can come from outside with your own offering that kind of dismantles that market and creates your own. You see where I'm coming from?
Do it once, Cletus. Do it once. You know, we move in, we take over, and we drive the Dream Deck into the ground. Simultaneously, we're building our own version of the product to release as soon as it becomes clear that the Dream Deck is no longer satisfactory.
Exactly. You got me.
Well then, our plan is quite clear. Commit this to memory, because I'll be taking it with me. That's the hostile takeover plan. What she's going to do is move investors and make use of some corporate contacts, headhunters, to get people into the board and to start buying up stock in the company until she's got a controlling share, and then just lump all those shares together, take over, and clean house.
Sure. Okay. Well, she's. I mean, for all my bright blue sky ideas, she's got the means to execute on all of that. So the strategy she chooses is the strategy that's going to happen, no matter what I say, really. But we've got two angles. We buy in and destroy, we buy in and augment, or we create a new product based on our experience of being involved, basically.
So we leave that little meal. You and Helmut finish your pilot. Let's. I think we should get ready to wrap up here. We can send Helmut out. We can send Helmut out to start pitching the pilot. Yeah,
that's good with me.
Let's see how he's doing. I'm gonna come up with some sort of mod. He's got some skill and experience here. He is a +2. Okay, we've got some yes buts, which means he's got people who are interested, but they're not really interested at the price point he's offering right now.
Right.
But it's okay, that's good. At this point in the game, he explains we want to start a bidding war. So we go around town, we get a couple people with yes buts, and then we start letting them know that the other ones are interested. This is a good start, but it's going to take a little time.
Sure. That all sounds good to Cletus. Yeah. He wants to put a positive gloss on that. So there's a lot of meetings. There's meeting about the meetings. There's meta meetings.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
We're dealing with 9 different branches of Mega Media, and none of them know what the other ones are doing.
Okay. So the pilot is under discussion, and there's interest. So we can big ourselves up by playing the interest off against each other in our own minds, at least. Yeah.
And let's just say that takes you up to Friday morning. So that if we're all in position next time we get together, it will be time to go back to Kabakamaru.
Okay. And that would be Frank's regular trip with an extra pitch with a promo that we take with us. Yeah.
That's right. In fact, it's Frank's first trip with the prefab houses.
Okay. All right. What we want from that is a prototype plowshare in the shape of a gun. Even if we just have one.
You want a prop made?
Yes. I turn our guns.
But Helmut's contacts can probably do that. Let's see. Oh, no problem at all. Helmut makes a call, and later that night you have a plowshare gun sitting in the studio.
Okay, great. Okay, so this doesn't fire into the air, but it fires into the earth, and it creates fecundity when combined with the water. That's the pitch. Okay, so the bullets fire into the earth, and they activate seeds. They create explosions in plants. Yeah. You have to be patient. It's a long time shot, as it were. It's like firing a seed into a uterus.
Okay, I can make you a gun that shoots water bullets, but I can't make the seeds grow faster.
No, well, nobody can. But that's okay. Yeah. But we've got something to take with us which symbolizes the future. We've got the promo, and we've got the plowshare as gun.
And you've got a mean-looking super soaker.
Yeah.
All right, cool. Okay, so you guys are ready, and I'm sorry, internets and all y'all people out there who are expecting the next adventure, because the next adventure is coming. We're going back to Kabaka Maru. There's shit going on. But it was important to talk right now about where Cletus' state of mind was and what's going on with him and Helmut, and align things up for the next trip. So I guess we're good now to wrap it up.
Yep.
I can't give you any experience points for tonight.
well, I still have some in reserve, so I quite like having them in the bank to chuck into the session as it happens. I
think that's great. And you know what? And no one yet has done a character development scene. I need to remind you guys, like every session.
I've been thinking about it, but I've been sort of waiting for the moment, as it were. And I got a feeling it might come up. Something might come up on Kabaka.
Oh yeah, a call from your first wife.
Yeah.
The one you actually had feelings for.
Oh, yeah, yeah, and which he'll never admit out loud. Yeah, yeah. Something like that could happen, or something to do with what the church is really about, which he doesn't know about yet. You know, there's all kinds of possibilities. Because he's still reading truth into symbols without really understanding what underpins the symbols. Really, it's still a biblical, a quasi-biblical narrative, but it's not really adding up.
Are you sleeping well?
No, he's unconsciously worried about losing followers and about the fact that God has not yet blessed him, and that George has not been particularly responsive.
Mm-hmm.
And whatever that psychosexual element that might represent. And basically, but he's distracted at the moment by real world concerns. He thinks he's very excited about the documentary, the Dorama documentary, God Wars, and he's very excited about the possibilities of Sonambula. But that's all blue sky stuff. It's at the moment it's occupying his attention, but it's not quieting the preconscious voices, which he's completely ignoring by over reliance on Zoom.
Chuck says you're welcome.
Yeah, yeah. So there's things bubbling under for the next sessions, which you might find you can use. But we'll see how it goes. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, you have a dream where you're on Kabaka Maru and you're digging in the ground.
Yeah.
And every time you unveil a new layer, it's like an archaeological dig, and you see all these people that you know. You see Frank, and you see Blanche, and you see Helmut, and then they all sort of like their faces melt and rot and turn into dust and blow away. So you dig deeper, but then it happens again. But every time you dig deeper, it's like they're more and more evil and decrepit and disgusting, and you can't stop digging deeper and deeper, and it just gets worse every time.
Okay. And maybe I think there's something underneath all the evil and decrepitude, but I always wake up before the thing makes itself apparent.
Yeah, somewhere at the bottom there's a little smiling child.
It's 6-year-old Cletus, and I don't like it. Right.
All right.
So I think that was good. Yeah. So
goodbye, internets.
Yeah. Okay. See you soon.
We'll see you out there.
Bye-bye.